All right, what's going on, everybody? I feel like this video is long overdue, but nonetheless, we are here. My name is Mike Kaprowski. I am an endurance athlete out of St. Petersburg, Florida, and this is going to be a Q&A video about the run I did called 100 Miles for Our Heroes. This run was a self-organized event where a team and I of like-minded individuals ran from Orlando, Florida, all the way to St. Petersburg, Florida, in 30 hours and 30 minutes. We had rest stops every 10 miles, and I cannot thank everybody enough for all their support, teamwork, camaraderie, and just positive energy at the end of the day. If you guys have ever done any self-organization events, it doesn't have to be 100 miles, but if you guys have ever done events or races where it's all self-planned, all self-organized in a team environment, it's tough. It's tough. We didn't have sanctions. We didn't have line barriers. We didn't have police escorts. We were running on the highways most of the time, on the grass fields, farmlands, etc. So before I even get started with this video, I do need to shout out everybody that has helped me or that did help me along this journey and continues to help me alongside everything I do as this crazy athlete that I consider myself. So without further ado, I compiled a couple of questions from my Instagram story a few months ago, and it kills me saying a few months ago. But nonetheless, some questions that I think are going to help some of you guys if you ever want to get started in the endurance scene, but also about obviously the run itself. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. So first question is, why did I run 100 miles in the first place? So if you know me, the past couple of years, I've really gotten heavily more so into the endurance scene. I've ran marathons. I've done 2 full distance Ironmans, ultra marathons, 50K, 50-mile trail run. And now I wanted to try and test myself again by going the full distance of 100 miles. The deeper answer to this question, though, is in March of 2020, I lost my brother-in-law, Ryan Mayer, to suicide. Uh, Devastating to say the least. And for anyone that grieves any type of loss, you guys know how hard it is, and you never forget those individuals. So obviously, I had my tough times and tough months, and really, I still have tough times going forward. But I knew that he wasn't going to want me to sob, to feel sorry for myself, and to take this and not grow with it per se, but to make something positive out of it. So originally, the first thing I did was I signed up for a 5K. And my buddy at the time, after I did it, raised a couple of money, a couple of hundreds of dollars to Wounded Warrior Project originally. And my one buddy, he really just kind of recommended to do something a little bit more challenging. And that's when I signed up for my full distance Ironman, and I never looked back. We raised several thousands of dollars going into it. And for this one specifically, I knew that this was going to be the biggest race and run and event in total that I've ever done. And, I knew that, this race would never be harder than anything that he was facing mentally, emotionally, and physically. So with all this being said, eventually I ran into a incredible nonprofit organization called Forgotten Coast Canine. Shout out to Chris and Tyler. They are heroes in my opinion. They're great individuals, and they have a mission to help our veterans and first responders out there that are diagnosed with a disability or PTSD. So when I collaborated with them, I knew that there was a higher purpose to everything that I was doing. And when I originally did the 100 miles, I didn't really know much, but I knew as long as I put it on paper that I was going to do this at this said time and day, everything else will kind of fall into place. So it all worked out well. Obviously, I'm still here, and you know that's a long story short for why I ran the 100 miles. And then ultimately, the biggest thing I'll take away from that 100-mile and just everything that was put into it from a logistical and teamwork standpoint was that you do need a team around you, a great team and great people around you to really fulfill and succeed in the highest goals you have in your life. You can only do so much by yourself, but if you're with these people and in a like-minded group of individuals, you really are uncapped with your potential and how far you can go. You'll always need that internal drive, discipline, and consistency, but you will only go so far by yourself. So ultimately, I ran the 100 miles to show myself that I can do it, and to really get that mental, kind of get into the pain cave and kind of take that next step up in the pain cave and learn more about myself. But ultimately, it was to pay homage and to make my brother-in-law proud. And we ultimately raised over $7,000 to our veterans and first responders. So that in itself was the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. Second question was, what was my main motivator to finish? Now, this kind of ties a little bit into the original question I just answered, but there's other main motivators as well. And I think, kind of not going into what I just said or answered, I think one of the things too that really motivated me was the team I was with, right? These individuals took off work, they took off their whole weekend in this case. Um, and the logistical planning of things is so much harder, in my opinion, than just me running. You know what I mean? So a big thing for me was the team I was with. I could never let them down and waste their time and energy. And how crappy would I feel if I let the people that believed in me down? And that was my biggest motivator in that case. Sure, I didn't want to let myself down, but at the end of the day, there was people that believed in me and wanted to take time out of their life to help me. So they were definitely my biggest motivators. And then I couldn't not say the people that donated to Forgotten Coast Canine and to, believe in me and my mission as well. So again, kind of tagging along with that is I just couldn't fathom not finishing for the people that believe in me. And it's not just about money per se. But obviously I wouldn't want them to feel like they did it for no reason, right? So I would say, other than what I mentioned the first part, main motivators is just not letting the people that believe in me down. And again, that kind of tags into anything you do in your life. Is you'll always have supporters that are loud and tell you all the time how much you're doing well and everything everything like that. But there's always going to be your unspoken supporters and believers. And I think anything in life, as long as you hold yourself to a high standard, you're always going to have people that look to you to, essentially, it doesn't have to be looking to be inspired by, but there's always people that don't say it out loud, that either congest your content, believe in you, follow you, and believe in your mission. And sometimes it takes stuff like this for those people to maybe have a little bit more of a voice. And you just never know what you can do for others. And that's where, again, I could just never see myself setting the stage in this case and then just failing and letting people down. So, and then letting myself down as well. So that would be my main motivator to finish. So we have a two-part question for this one. What was the worst and best part? So the worst part of this run came, unfortunately, due to stomach issues. So right about mile 30 is when I started to experience some digestive issues and stomach problems. I'm not sure exactly what was going on. The one thing I do have to say, though, is I got a little too cocky in the beginning, first 30 miles, where I didn't think I needed as much fuel as I needed. And it didn't have to necessarily be whole foods. I wasn't consuming the gels at the right time or electrolytes. And I think I felt so much adrenaline coming out of this that I think I was just living off cloud nine for a little bit, and I got off routine. And that is or I got off the plan mainly. And I think that's what kind of fumbled around a little bit. And just anything now that I'm learning in endurance training and just anything event wise is if you fall off nutrition, it's very, very hard, if near impossible, to get back to that, that normalcy. So basically from about miles 30 to 50 was the hardest part of that run, in my opinion. Dry heaving every 30 minutes. I couldn't stomach anything down. If I did, it would just come back up again. And I remember at mile, it was either 30 or 40, if I'm not mistaken. I remember I was at a rest stop, and that was when I told my girlfriend Jessica that I physically didn't think I was going to be able to finish the race if I can't stomach anything down. And, you know, being the amazing person she is, she reassured me that I wouldn't be here if I wasn't going to finish the run. So, I toughened up, got some water in me, got layered up just because it was getting a little bit cold at the time, and just kept going, and just one foot in front of the other. And eventually, of course, it didn't feel great dry heaving and not being able to stomach down really anything or drink anything, but just plain water, if that. That was definitely the most challenging part of the run, but just like anything else, it will pass. And it did after mile 50. From that, we talked about the worst. Now, what was the best part? I'll give a 1A, 1B answer for this. My 1A has to be obviously finishing the run. At the time, I was at a gym that I was working out of, and to see hundreds of people in pouring downpour rain all waiting for me, cheering, and some people I would never have thought would even be there in the first place. It would be hard for me not to say that didn't feel that, and I can say that confident, that was the best feeling in my life so far. They're rowdy, and they're great people and a great community of people as well. So it would be hard for me not to say that was probably my number one answer. But I have to also, again, shout out my team, right? The best part as well was just seeing how well everyone meshed and worked together. At the end of the day, me running 10 miles was X amount of time every 10 miles, and it got longer. My team was always there when they needed to be. There was never any stress or anxiety put on me extra. Everyone was just there at the right time, right place, with the right energy, perspective, and motivation. And again, I have to say that was the best part, seeing the teamwork and communication and everything handled logistically. There was no flaws and no faults. And that's something that needs to be recognized. And it was amazing to see the teamwork and camaraderie between those individuals. And again, I have to thank them because they had the hardest job, in my opinion. Actually, before I move on, speaking about my amazing girlfriend, she's actually right here. So shout out to Jessica. She's making her camera appearance. Shout out to Jessica. She was, I told her from the start that she was going to have the hardest job in this run, and she did, and she executed very well. And she deserves a little shout out. So I love you and thank you. Hey. Okay, shout out Mike Valenti, because this is a very Mike Valenti question. He asked me, what was the easiest part about the 100 miles? This was probably the hardest question I had to think of an answer for, because quite frankly, there wasn't really any easy part to this at all. But going alongside what I finished with, the last question, this may sound like I'm making it up or whatever, but quite frankly, the easiest part was running the 100 miles. And again, I know how that's going to sound to some, but I have to say the word easy is relative. And what I mean by that is you have to have perspective with the words you say. When I think of the easiest thing I had to do was running, right? I didn't have to worry about rest stops. I didn't have to worry about, did I have the right food at that rest stop? I didn't have to worry about where I was going. Anyone that I was running with per 10 miles, they are the ones that had the route in front of them. They were the ones that told me what to do. I just had to put one foot in front of the other, keep a internal motivating factor and discipline. And again, they even helped me with that, with words of, not affirmation, but just encouragement, and just relaying the fact that, hey, we're good. Just keep sticking to your nutrition, and we'll figure this out, and we'll get there one step in front of the other. So if I had to give an answer to that, it would just be the fact that I just had to worry about getting to the finish line. They worried about everything else, from logistics, safety, and et cetera. So that would be my answer to that. Also, before I get to the next question, I do have to shout out, or another shout out. I'm going to shout out my good friend, Brian Mayer. This is his new clothing and apparel. So if you didn't know, he's a amazing photographer out of New Jersey, northern New Jersey. So thank you, Brian, and miss you, and respect to what you're doing from the entrepreneurial side as well. So thank you. Next question was, what was the most surprising thing you learned about yourself while running 100 miles? Shout out Zach Pollock. I think the most surprising thing I learned about myself while doing this was the internal drive and dialogue that I had with myself. Besides for that one instance that I didn't think I was going to finish, you have to keep in mind that the words you say matter, right? In that run, if you don't think through a course of 30 hours of running that you're not going to have a moment of uncertainty, a problem occurring, or just internal dialogue telling you, hey, you can't do this, you should stop, you should X, Y, or Z, then you're not planning for the reality of life, right? There is no light without the dark. And in this case, I think the most surprising thing I learned about myself was how prepared I was for those dark times. You can't get rid of the voice in your head, but you can alter and respond to what it's telling you. In that moment of disparity and uncertainty, there was never a point where I was like, no, I'm going to give in. I'm going to listen to that voice in my head. And I think coming from when I first started endurance sports and just this, endurance scene itself, I struggled in the beginning. I never thought that I would be doing this. I never thought I'd be a coach. I never thought I would be doing any of this. So in the beginning, it was a struggle for sure. I had my doubts. I had my imposter syndrome, which I still do have every once in a while because I couldn't believe that I'm this person that I developed into and turned into. And I think I made a post about this on my Instagram a little recently ago, but I think it's just giving yourself some grace, right? I think the younger versions of ourselves would be extremely proud of where we are today and the leaps and the fates and the belief in ourselves that we took and take. So ultimately, I think the way I responded to adversity was something that I was definitely very proud of myself, but I learned a lot about myself as well. And you can translate all this stuff to your everyday life as well, right? So in times where I think life is hard, this too shall pass. And also, I'm in control of what my life looks like, right? Tough times create tough people. And I think if we always challenge ourselves to get a little bit more uncomfortable and try hard things and invest, and we never fail, we learn. And that was something that I'm going to take on for the rest of my life. So if I can run 100 miles, what is my limit just in life, right? Anything with businesses, my coaching, the athletes I train, the standard we set is paramount. And I feel like when we practice what we preach, the standard is already preset when you walk through the door. So I'm going to take this on for the rest of my life. And, I have a lot more planned in the future, but this was a powerful moment in my life. All right, guys. So last question I have on here is, what's your advice for anyone thinking of doing the same? And I'm going to give a little two-part, right? First and foremost, obviously, if you have no experience in the endurance scene, this is going to be a tough feat. Not saying no one can do it, but I would definitely recommend reaching out to the people that that have done this before, because it does take a lot of time, energy, and discipline, and consistent discipline in order to get that volume appropriately per week and per month in order to train your body to do 100 miles, whether it's self-organized or an event or, someone actually putting on the event. Now, for people that are looking to just do this, that have some experience in the game, have done races before, have done an ultra before, I think my biggest piece of advice is you have to commit, right? I know it's a very cheesy and common sense answer, but something like this, you can't just wake up without training or preparation or mental preparation and planning and just do this, right? So, and at least do it safely, right? I think the human body is capable of so much and so many powerful things, but you don't want to hurt yourself in the process either. That would just not, obviously, there's no return on that, right? So my biggest advice is to commit and slowly progress as you go, right? I went from 5K. Well, I actually can't even say anything. I went from 5K to Ironman, right? So at least get some skin in the game and put something on the calendar. I think that was the biggest thing. Even when I just go back to what I'm saying, I went from a 5K to a full distance Ironman. It's not like I wasn't training for it, right? I spent about a whole year straight of training for my first full distance Ironman. So when I signed up for that Ironman, I haven't swam since I was a kid in pools at like a day camp. I used to ride bikes with my friends all the time in grade school and middle school. So that was crazy having like a race bike now. But at the end of the day, kind of like what the common theme here is just getting uncomfortable, but also signing up for something. I think there's power. Sure, you can write something in the calendar, but paying for something and having it like, hey, like no matter what, this day you are signed up to do this. And I think especially for Ironman, Ironmans are not cheap. So when I signed up for that, I'm like, hey, like I need to do this, right? Slight off-topic piece of advice as well is be planned to spend a little bit more money than you think. The endurance scene, especially when you get to the ultra triathlon scene, it's not cheap, right? I know this isn't an Ironman video, but if you're trying to do anything like Ironman related or triathlon, oriented, you're gonna need a wetsuit, you need a bike, you're gonna need different pairs of run shoes as you go, and similar to 100 miles, think about all the nutrition you're gonna need. Testing out what nutrition works best for you. You can't just copy and paste someone's supplement routine and just act like it's going to work for your digestive system well if you haven't done this stuff before. So I think if I were to go back to the beginning, I would have planned a little bit differently for that from a financial standpoint. But at the end of the day, I think what I said before with the best piece of advice is if you wholeheartedly and confidently want to push yourself, whether it's a marathon, a half marathon, 10K, 5K, 50K, etc., find a race that works for you logistically, financially, etc., and sign up for it. Pay for it, sign up for it, then everything else will kind of fall into place. But unless you finally press the confirm button in your purchase, it's still just an idea. And then you can actually kind of accumulate some compounded interest with your consistency and efforts for training at that point. And then you'll be way more well equipped to get the finish line in this case. So that would be, there's a lot more advice that I would give, because then at that point you're just running and then you have to train, right? So obviously making sure you're following a good training program. If you guys need any help with that as well, I am an online run and endurance coach, so I could always feel free to message me, comment, etc., whether it's on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, etc., and I can help get you in the right direction, because I wish I had that when I was first starting as well. So that's the video, you guys. Long awaited, and I'm open to feedback and comments about how the quality is, the commentary, anything like that. I have made one YouTube video previously, but that was on a GoPro, just running 30 miles actually. But nonetheless, I'm open to feedback, especially from you guys, right? I want to build a strong community on this social media platform, and I'm taking this very seriously now. So again, I'm open ears, and I can take some criticism as well. So again, thank you all for watching this video. Any questions, comment down below. If you can subscribe, that would mean a lot to me, and we'll catch you in the next video.